So the next core development issue to address is community. Community means being able to be involved with others in a meaningful way. The ability to have rewarding affiliations, to develop non-abusive relationships, to have respect for self and for others. This includes respect toward employees who make less money than you do, managing income disparity in the world, developing a peer group, and being able to relate to reality and heading off any sort of entitlement issues. A lot of parents are worried about these types of things. So if your child is traveling everywhere by private plane and feels embarrassed because they cannot go to an airport and buy a ticket and get on a commercial flight, that's not a good thing. That's not really helping your child to be able to navigate reality, because maybe sometimes they won't be able to be on a private plane. If you exhibit abusive behavior toward maids, gardeners, or employees of your household, your children will mimic you and become abusive employers when they grow up. This is a very bad habit to put on your children. Most of the best families I know treat their employees like gold and insist that their children are respectful to nannies, maids, and people that work in the home. Security people, gardeners, everybody. So it's important that you teach them to treat people with respect. There's a danger of developing serious narcissism in your children if they simply are allowed to have every single thing they want when they want it, and if there's no consequences on their bad behavior. Just like any other normal quote-unquote child or child of middle class or upper middle class means, your children need to be disciplined, they need to be respectful, they need to obey the law, they need to be able to interact with others in a way that realizes the other person has rights too. They need to learn to take turns, they need to learn all the things that any human being does to relate well in society. If you set up a situation where your children are simply allowed to do whatever they want, whenever they want, with no consequences, you are potentially creating a monster. So don't do that. Treat your children with love and kindness, which means teaching them limits when they're young, so that when they grow up, they will be a good human being. The next core development issue that's discussed in the article is inspiration. Children need answers to life's big questions. They need to develop some sort of a spiritual capacity, which could be from a religious tradition or an ethical tradition. Teaching your children some sort of prayer or meditation practice, even if it's just mindfulness or breathing, or certainly bringing them up in the religion of your family, is a good thing to do. When they grow up, they can decide whether or not they want to believe in a religious tradition, but much research shows that having some sort of religious background when they're young is actually very helpful and comforting to children. And it's certainly important to teach children respect and tolerance for religious beliefs that are different than your own. Teaching your children to respect and tolerate other religious traditions is important. If you don't teach that, then they could get in trouble in school by attacking other children, and you don't want that to happen. It's very important to create a psychologically healthy home environment for children. Parental substance abuse, physical or sexual abuse will scar your children for life. As I mentioned, children need to have limits and boundaries in their environment. They need to obey the adults that are in charge of them, so they cannot abuse their nannies or the maids or other people in the home. That's totally off limits and bad behavior. And from a very young age, children have a sense of fairness and will expect parents to walk their talk. Children want to admire you as heroes and great examples. So any hypocrisy on your part will be noted, and younger generations will not take that very well. So for example, if you tell children they can't have something because we can't afford it, quote unquote, and then you go out and spend money wildly, they will never believe you and they will not respect you. It's much better to say, we choose not to spend our money this way, than to say we can't afford it. Particularly if you're living in a lavish home and flying around in a plane, your children don't want to hear that they can't afford something, but they can certainly learn this is not the way that we spend our money. So remember that, like children everywhere, your children are watching what you do, not what you say. And it's up to you to set the right type of tone and environment. If there is any kind of sexual, physical, or verbal abuse going on in your home, you need to get help for your family and for your children. If you don't, that damage will pass into your future generations. There are so many experts out there today who will carefully and discreetly help your family, and your single family office can help you identify those experts if you need them.